This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
What's shaking, Real Talkers? The title of this episode is Canada having an anti-American hissy fit. And as soon as this live stream goes, shout out to everybody that joins us live in our stream presented by California Closets. Shout out to everybody who joins us later after the fact, catching this on the podcast or on YouTube. But as soon as the title pops up, Kathy in our live chat powered by Park Power says, who's saying that we're having a hissy fit? We were just minding our own business until a certain tangerine with too much power started poking the polar bear. I love that, Kathy. To answer your question, who's saying it? It's a Canadian member of parliament. It's a Conservative MP that went down on a solo trade mission to the United States to connect with his college pal, J.D. Vance, now the vice president. I'm talking about Jamil Jivani, who did an interview with Breitbart, the right-wing media outlet, over the weekend and said that his fellow Canadians are having an anti-American hissy fit. Now, you know, first episode of every week, we're joined by Supriya Dwivedi, and we'll get her take on that, plus other news of the day. Of course, the big story in this country over the past 7 days, it's been a week since a shooter took the lives of two members of their own family and then executed innocent children and an EA at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School. We'll get you up to speed on that as well. A remarkable image snapped, and all things considered, this is exactly what we would expect through a national tragedy. But the two main political leaders, federally speaking, across the country, Pierre Poilievre, Mark Carney, standing hand in Tumbler Ridge. We'll bring you some of what the Prime Minister had to say through that as well. To Supriya in 30 seconds, we want to let you know this episode is happening thanks to the presenting sponsorship of Hanson Distillery. This is Edmonton's original distillery. You can see it online at hansondistillery.com. Rooted in prairie grit and a rebellious spirit, Hanson's known for authentic small batch whiskey, vodka, gin, moonshine, and unique liqueurs. We have a couple to tell you about coming up in the next couple of weeks. New creations from the team at Hanson, crafted right here in Alberta's capital with local Alberta ingredients. Every bottle telling a true story of passion, heritage, and hands-on craftsmanship. Raise a glass to real talk and real spirits. You can visit Hanson Distillery on 174th Street, 111th Avenue. If you're in the Metro Edmonton region, that's just north of Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West, or look for their creations wherever you buy fine Alberta spirits. And of course, you can always read more about the Hanson story and go shopping online at hansondistillery.com. They're proudly local and always original, made right here. We say hello the first episode of every week on the heels of a Family Day weekend. Thankfully, of course, able to take a day away from it all. We hope you were too, Real Talkers, and reflect on what's truly important, but presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Here she is again, Supriya Dwivedi, former senior advisor to the Prime Minister of Canada. It's nice to see your face.
Good to see your face as always, Ryan.
Yeah, Family Day this year, I think for a lot of people, probably holding their kids a little bit tighter. And it just, I mean, you know, what can happen in a week? We talked to you last Monday. We talked to you 8 days ago, and I don't know if everything's fine. I mean, the world, of course, has its challenges, but one day later, everything, you know, just unfolds as it did in Tumbler Ridge. And for the last week or so, I think it's safe to say about 40 million people across the country have been sort of experiencing I don't know if it's a mix of numbness and heartbreak or what it is, but it's never lost on me how a week can just change everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had mentioned this to you, but you know, I like everything to me is just how obviously tragic the shooting is. You think of how young some of the victims were, right? The shooter's 11-year-old half brother, the students that were 12 and 13, and you just get this mix of like deep despair and grief for the families and the entire community. And in my case, it's just like coupled with this unbridled rage at the shooter. I can't imagine what that community is going through. I can't imagine the kind of lasting trauma that this is going to have on the kids who go to Tumbler Ridge Secondary School, right? I think I had read that they're arranging for the students to kind of double up at the elementary school, and there are some accommodations being made. And again, you know, we still need more information about how the shooter got the guns to begin with, given that the guns weren't registered to the shooter. But amidst all this, like the number one concern, obviously, is the community and the families that, to your point, just, 8 days ago is completely different for them. They wake up one morning and they, don't get to hug their kids that night. And that's gonna stick with you,
Yeah, I've been. I think like everybody else, I don't think that this has anything to do with what I do for work. I think it's just me as a human watching the news coverage here and seeing some of these interviews that these parents, these incredibly brave parents, probably I would imagine, still in shock to a certain degree. I think everybody's still in shock, even people that haven't lost a loved one. The level of pain and anguish and heartbreak and anger, like you said, that these families would be feeling, like these teachers would be feeling. I can't even imagine some of the Instagram posts and, from journalists and everyday citizens alike have shown some letters that some of the teachers there at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School have written to the kids that were killed. And it's just like, you just get emotional reading them. Pretty remarkable to see Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre. I mean, we would expect them to do this. They're doing what we would expect them to do, but standing there together in solidarity. Carney obviously canceling big federal government announcements, canceling a trip to Munich. The leader of the official opposition doing the exact same thing, clearing their schedules to be there in Tumbler Ridge. We'll bring Real Talkers a couple of moments from the Prime Minister's speech, including right now, that I think are important and significant. And you and I can just talk this out with Real Talkers in the live chat, just like humans do. But here's one of the powerful moments from Canada's Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you all for letting me be here with you this evening. I know that nothing I can say will bring your children home. I know that no words from me or anyone can fill the silence in your homes tonight, and I won't pretend otherwise. But I, the leader of the opposition, the leader of all the federal parties, wanted you to hear, not from Ottawa, not through a screen, but standing here together in your home. We wanted you to hear the Canadians are with you, and we will always be with you. We wanted you to hear that whatever portion of your sadness that Canadians can bear to help to ease your heavy load, we will gladly do so.
That stuck out at me when he says, we wanted you to hear whatever portion we can handle, or whatever portion basically we can take on, which is an acknowledgement. I think of what we were just saying is that there's really nothing, I was speaking about this with Charles Adler last week, and you want to offer thoughts and prayers, but it's the cynic in us almost smirks and chuckles when people say thoughts and prayers. We use it as like a throwaway comment. But for the leaders to be there is important, and certainly BC's premier was there immediately, but not to mention like first responders that were there immediately, mental health counselors that have been there immediately. But, you've worked as a senior advisor for a Prime Minister of Canada. What does what does a real response to something like this look like? We can speak specifically about the federal government, or if you want to break it down as well to the different levels of government. What would you hope to see come of something like this?
I mean, on the operational side, as the federal government, I think the sentiment that the Prime Minister laid out with respect to wanting to hear from Ottawa, not through a screen, but there is incredibly meaningful. But then the corollary to that, of course, is that you don't want the federal government being there to sort of impede on anything locally going on the ground, right? And I'm not suggesting that this is what happened at all here, but that is certainly a concern. I remember, during it was in the direct aftermath of the Lelouch shooting in Saskatchewan, where there was some concern about whether Prime Minister Trudeau going there, if that was going to then impede on anything going on locally. And I don't think it happened then either. And I think it's incredibly important for the federal government, as they did in this case, to sort of be there as a show of support. And I think it was incredibly meaningful to have Pierre Poilievre there as well. And I know this is going to, I don't want to sound too Pollyanna-ish about this, but given what's going, what's going around all over the world, particularly directly south to us, I think Canadians should be incredibly proud that we still live in a country where the leader of the official opposition can go with the prime minister, quite literally hand in hand to show a sort of united support from the federal government. Like they were all there as one team, Team Canada, all there for Tumbler Ridge and for that community.
Yeah, and you referenced like there are still big questions here about how the shooter gained access to those guns, and we're seeing some details. I want to credit the journalists that are there doing very difficult work. It's interesting. There's been this trend, by the way. I'll stop myself for a second. A Real Talker wrote in last week this very powerful email about I had recognized police and EMT and the firefighters that were there, and RCMP officers that in a small town that were there within 2 minutes.
They did amazing work.
Amazing work. Said they located the shooter who was deceased at that time. Looks like a self-inflicted gunshot wound, but they were there within 2 minutes, and everybody says everybody that was there is saying that they stopped this in what could have been so much worse, if you can even imagine that. But an audience member wrote in, and she's works at a funeral home, and talked about the people that sort of prepare these. I don't know how to put this, Supriya, but like basically prepare these young bodies and so their families can say goodbye. And it just such a powerful email. And we read that and just wanted to recognize those people. Somebody else wrote in over the weekend and said, who else we haven't talked about is the coroners. They said like they're doing just incredibly difficult lifting. And it feels like the more emails we get, the more wake-up calls we're getting, the more good points that people are making. You realize the scope of a response to something like this and the number of people, including many of them professionals, that are just doing their job, but they're doing such an important job. I think of these mental health counselors that are speaking. I mean, I don't even know where you begin. You're going to be speaking differently to teachers that were there than you will to bereaved parents, which will be a different conversation than with the surviving students. I can't imagine what it's going to be like for these students heading back to class, and we can talk about that in a sec. But what struck me is that this hasn't been, there's some conversation about guns and, the guns that were taken from this home and then returned to this home. And the shooter, did have a gun license, but it had lapsed, and the mom had a gun. But it didn't strike me in Canada as a battle, this kind of Second Amendment battle that we see in the United States when something like this happens and it immediately becomes a polarizing debate or argument over access to firearms or the right to bear arms. It seemed like here in Canada, I don't know, maybe I'm just trying to look at this as some sort of a positive, but it seems like everybody was on the same page acknowledging that something went sideways here and it needs to be figured out. Do you see it the same way?
Yeah, I think I largely do. And, you kind of mentioned in the earlier bit there about how just saying thoughts and prayers can almost be a throwaway comment. And I think we need to recognize the reason why it's kind of turned into the throwaway comment is because that's often the way U.S. politicians express their condolences, time and time again after these horrific school shootings. So, again, I think it's a good thing that, we didn't turn this into like an automatically polarizing or partisan political thing. I think we recognize very clearly that something within the system went wrong, like something within the checks and balances that we have went wrong, that the shooter should not have had access to guns, particularly considering the, lengthy sheet of acute mental health instances that the shooter would have had prior to this, right? And just in reading some of the descriptions of the shooter, not exactly one that presents as mentally well. So that's always a concern. But I think I just go back to the powerful image of Pierre Poilievre, Mark Carney, Mary Simon along there too. So you have head of government, head of state, leader of the official opposition, all there. No, bickering, no like partisan little shots here and there. Just there as Canadians for the community.
Yeah. Here's more from Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney alongside Pierre Poilievre, it should be noted, in Tumbler Ridge.
And that's true because we don't just give grace, we receive grace. Grace from Kylie, Ezekiel, Zoe, Tiki. Abel, Shonda. Grace that fills this community, this extended family, gathering in the cold and holding candles for all of your children. And the grace from across Canada. And when we leave here tonight, and some of you go back to quiet houses, some of you go back to empty rooms, please know that you're not alone. Vous n'êtes pas seul. When you wake up tomorrow and the world feels impossible, know that millions of Canadians are with you. When the cameras leave and the quiet sets in, know that we still will be here. And know that we shall need you too. Because Canada is a community that relies on each other's grace. And may that grace bless us all.
That's Prime Minister Mark Carney in Tumbler Ridge. So these temporary trailers are arriving in Tumbler Ridge. They're being set up as we speak as the school prepares to welcome students back. I don't know if welcome is the right word, but to bring students back. Yeah. The trailer's reportedly about a kilometer away from the site of the school, and there's discussion right now about whether or not that school will ever reopen. There have been other school shootings where the schools were, the buildings themselves were demolished and rebuilt either in different locations or what have you. In particular, I've been reading the Globe and Mail's reporting on this, doing a remarkable job interviewing some of the students that have been willing to talk about it, and feelings are mixed on whether or not they want to go back to the building. Tumbler Ridge officials have stated that no student is expected to go back, and they're going to find alternative approaches for students that find themselves unable to return. I can understand that. I can't imagine, as a matter of fact, heading back into that classroom, teachers and students. You're hearing stories of, like, there was a teacher that I think it was a shop teacher that was like piling up metal benches in front of the door as this was happening. Other teachers getting their students into closets. These heroes, these teachers that are doing what they had trained to do. I don't know that any student or teacher seriously thinks. I mean, I remember fire drills when I was young. I don't know if you're a bit younger than me. I don't know if you were doing sort of the active shooter emergency drills or whatever they call them in school. We never did those. But nobody, I don't think, participating in those actually thinks it's going to happen at their school, right? But everybody responded as they should.
Yeah. I've never had any of those active sort of shooter drills in school. The one time that it was sort of brought up, because I went to Université de Montréal for law school, which is their engineering school, is Polytechnique, right? Yeah. And so every year they have an amazing vigil. It's quite moving. But I remember my first year of law school, one of the profs said, because it was we were in a classroom that had two doors, and he went, "Oh," and everybody was like, "Oh, what's the matter?" And it's like, "Oh, well, normally there's like a chair that's on the side of that wall, and it's not there right now, and that's what I always thought I would barricade that door with. I would throw my desk to this door, and that would barricade that door."
Wow.
And we were all like, "Oh, wait, what?" And they're like, "Oh, well, it's better to be prepared." But that wasn't a drill by any sorts. But you can just, and Polytechnique happened in 1989. This would have been in 2010. So it just goes to show that the lasting, impression that these events can have on the folks that are part of that community.
Yeah, no kidding. It feels, I mean, it's one of those things where everybody, it seems that we encountered even this weekend, like friends or running into people our kids play sports with or what have you. It's like this seemed to come up within the first 10 minutes. For some people, it was right away. People just kind of allude to it. Hey, how you doing? As you say to people, wow, my heart's heavy. And you kind of go, yeah, like everybody knows, and it just feels like this is, I think that one of the things that we wanted to highlight there with what the Prime Minister said, which is true, and communities encounter this sort of a thing when tragedy strikes, not always a mass shooting like this, but it could be a big wildfire. It could be some other sort of natural disaster, or I think of like a lac mégantic or something like that, where the attention, and this isn't the fault of, these millions of Canadians, for whom things are happening on your front door or around your kitchen table every single day, but the national attention does move on. Not that people will ever forget what happened in Tumbler Ridge. I think that anytime somebody mentions that they're from Tumbler Ridge, they'll probably get a hug from whoever they're talking to. You know, maybe there's that sort of a similar thing in Humboldt, Saskatchewan, or other places. But it is just a reminder. You know, it's a weekend, and it already feels like a month's worth of news has happened around this. It wasn't lost on me today as I was preparing to talk to you that you and I hadn't even checked in on this yet.
Yeah, I know. It's like you said off the top, like what a difference 8 days can make, just
So
in
true.
terms of what we would talk about.
Yeah, just real life stuff, Supriya, and this audience here is with it as well. You know, Amanda says that she'd heard that students weren't going back for the remainder of the year to that school. Says I don't blame them. Says I don't know if I could go back to that school. I don't think that I could either. Although there have been some students that have said that they're eager to get back to remind themselves of the wonderful memories that they had in those same hallways. It's safe to say that different people will have different reactions to this and find different ways to move forward.
Yeah, because I mean, you can certainly also understand a student being like, well, fuck that shooter.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let that shooter take away, you know, my school, the memories I built up with my friends, etc. So I can certainly see how a student would, you know, react diametric on very different sides to this.
100%.
And there's no right or wrong.
No, there is no right or wrong. And for a lot of people, like their grieving has, you know, probably is already into an advanced stage, or as advanced as it could be. And for some other people, I would imagine they're sitting there and they still can't wrap their minds around what happened. They're still in shock. And that's the sort of thing that happens in a scenario like this. I do want to encourage Real Talkers to continue to share your thoughts with us, to talk at ryanjesperson.com. Kathy says there's probably going to be a lot of survivor's guilt for people who are there to work through. She says, I can't imagine how bad, how awful this is for all of them. Dwayne says, I can't imagine what the emergency responders have to deal with this. I just think, it's an opportunity. It's like the impetus is on us as well to just experience that gratitude that we have with people. I shared with the audience, it sounds foolish. I felt silly, but you know, when that funeral home operator wrote into the show, it was like her email moved me in a huge way. And I was like, I don't mean this disrespectfully, but it like hadn't even occurred to me to recognize people that are coroners and people that work in funeral homes. But like, oh my gosh, right? You know, and I think something like this, it reminds us as a society. We talk a lot about, you know, when we talk about the administration of things like health and education budgets, or the front lines, or surgical delays, or ER wait times. And like, these are people, you know, people that we're lucky to have, and people that when they show up to work every single day, not knowing what they're going to encounter, sometimes encounter just the absolute worst imaginable circumstance. And that's just, I think, a big part of where my head has been over the past 7 days.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to highlight, because you don't always think about the folks that are on the back end, right? That are still making everything go along. And so I certainly appreciate getting those emails as well, and hearing them from you, because it is enlightening.
Yeah, we had a guest coming up this week ask if their handler asked if they could pre-tape, and I said, we don't pre-tape. I said, because the audience interaction on this show through the live chat is like what makes this show this show. And I want to remind Real Talkers how grateful we are for that. We did title the episode, Is Canada Having an Anti-American Hissy Fit? And we got to get to this story making news over the weekend. We'll go in just a second. Top up your coffee. We're hanging out with Supriya Dwivedi in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Before we go any further, I want to remind you that California Closets has its team of designers ready to meet with you at no charge. It's a no-risk, no-obligation sit-down when you request a free consultation at CaliforniaClosets.ca. This is a proud Canadian-owned company that manufactures everything it installs in our home province of Alberta. Johnny's showing you some of their just absolute masterpieces. If you're watching us on YouTube or on social channels, you can get the dream walk-in closet, maybe a stairway installation to showcase some of your family's photo frames and treasures. They can help you convert a home office to a guest room and vice versa with one of those Murphy beds. Of course, a dream laundry room, a custom garage. They do it all. And you can book your free consultation today at CaliforniaClosets.ca. If you were one of those Real Talkers that checked out the Friesen Brothers Family Day brunch, I hope you had a wonderful time at those select Friesen Brothers. Of course, they're all about family. Friesen Brothers is a family business, 71 years still and counting after it started with that modest butcher shop in Hinton. Friesen Brothers is proud to be supporting Heart Month through the month of February, benefiting the University Hospital Foundation, specifically the Mazankowski Alberta Heart Institute. You can learn more about it by visiting their website, friesen.com/Heart Month. And don't forget to support Heart Month, in particular, that institution they call the Maz at the till at all 16 Friesen Brothers, all part of Friesen Brothers' commitment to Heart Month. Our friends at North Road Investment Council reminding you that, well, you can't just wing it when it comes to setting yourself up for long-term financial success and, of course, a well-thought-out, a well-planned-out retirement. The team at North Road, led by Marshall and Carrie, offer a steady hand and a studied voice to guide you through wealth and investing. You can learn more about how they do that by checking out their website, northroadic.com. It's where they partner with discerning families, foundations, and associations with a strategic approach to wealth management that importantly aligns with your vision. That includes digital risk advisory services. They're the only ones in the space with a full-time staffer specifically dedicated to that file. And that's not the only way that North Road sets itself apart. You can connect with them today by visiting northroadic.com. Supriya Dwivedi, our guest, first episode of every week. And how did this come across your radar, Supriya? Conservative MP Jamil Jivani does an interview with Breitbart, recapping his solo trade mission, I guess you'd call it, to the United States. Was it that just you were checking in, doing your regular Saturday morning thing on Breitbart, listening to all the new podcasts they had out? How did that come about?
That's exactly it. I'm my Breitbart fan fiction was coming across, and there's like, oh, this has actually happened where Jamil was on. No, it honestly, it showed up initially on my feed, just on, I think it was on Blue Sky initially, and then I saw it on Twitter of a screen grab of the Breitbart page that was talking, that was the write-up of Jamil's interview with the Breitbart folks. And then I was like, oh, is this actually real, this screen grab? And then I just Googled Jamil Jivani Breitbart, and lo and behold, it was real. And then I think a lot more people started to take notice, and it ended up on like National News Watch, which is this like federal political news aggregator. It ended up on the front page, and then I think it caught the attention of basically most of Ottawa.
So he says, as part of this interview, that Canadians, and people can check it out at Breitbart.com, Canadians are harming the country. We are harming our country with the anti-American hissy fit that we're having on trade. This seems to me, I mean, the trip may be risky. I can see some risk and reward. I see mostly risk for him because it feels like, and you and I have discussed this before, it kind of feels like he's coming for the king. It kind of feels like he's soft launching a leadership campaign for the Conservative Party after Pierre Poilievre just scored pretty well on his leadership review at the the annual convention just a very short time ago. The reward, I guess, maybe it looks like he's attempting to work across the aisle. He's working with the federal government to do his best. He's reminding people that he has access to the Oval Office, that he's tight with the U.S. Vice President. But I think Canadians were split, and I saw some loud voices criticizing the mission. I don't understand the logic of coming back from the trip and then smearing Canadians and basically kind of mocking the strong feelings that Canadians have about what the U.S. is trying to impose on our proud and sovereign nation.
Yeah, look, I think there was somewhat sort of a little bit defensible at the beginning of all this, right? And note all my qualifiers, because from me, on the face of it, if you don't have your leaders okay, right? And I don't mean the prime minister in this case, I mean Pierre Poilievre for Mr. Jivani. If you don't have his okay or his blessing, or even have given him much of a heads up that you're going, to me, it signals pretty clearly that you have zero respect for your leader, and that you have concerns that or ambitions that are beyond this current iteration of the party. And I think you had a lot of defenders of Jamil initially being like, well, what do you want him to do? He has this connection to the vice president, and of course he's going to go down, and this is what we should be doing, cross partisan. And, again, like, that's fair. And I think on the face of what Jamil had initially said, which was he wants to take the partisanship out of it, and he wants, to go down there as a help to the federal government and as a help to the prime minister, using his connections or whatever it is that he can. You're like, okay, sure, fine, go do that. But then he comes back. He didn't really come back with anything, right? Initially, it was mild chastising of the Canadian position and of the Canadian side, saying that, we were cozying up to China or whatever the language that he was initially using, and, him thinking that was a mistake. Even that was like somewhat defensible, right? It's like, okay, fine. But now that you're going on to Breitbart and you're referring to it as an anti-American hissy fit, it just shows to me that Jamil certainly doesn't get it. And if you're part of that front bench for the Conservatives and you're Mr. Poilievre, you got to deal with him now, because I can't imagine that the audio isn't going to be used by the Liberals or, by the NDP, the Bloc Québécois, whatever. And I can't imagine that this isn't going to become an increasing line of attack, from the Liberals, because, again, this goes to show that on balance, the Conservatives would rather side with the Americans and Donald Trump than they would with Canada. And it doesn't matter where you stand on a partisan spectrum, but to the vast majority of Canadians, it should be like your loyalty should be to Canada and to Canadians. And right now, I'm not sure we're seeing that from Jamil.
Yeah, well, it doesn't feel like any loyalty at all. I just think of anybody in my personal life, or I think if I said this to a guest on the show, like when I invoke the words hissy fit, I don't suppose that that's ever going to go in the direction toward peace. Or right, I don't think that it's like telling someone who's very upset to just calm down, right? Quit having a hissy fit. RS in our live chat, powered by Park Power, says Jivani's a real problem for the Conservative Party. He's a first-class shit disturber, and not in a good way. I recognize RS pointing out that shit disturber can be a good quality as a politician, but not in this case. JM is watching us on Facebook this morning, says Jivani's a fool. He unilaterally decided he knew better than the federal government and unilaterally went and undermined its strategy, which is something else we can talk about. Tracy says he's a traitor. Kyle says he's being honest. It seems like we don't want to help ourselves. We'd rather kick the shin of a guy who will kick our ass, and mostly is because of our own doing. Super Chat Ken says Jivani is clearly angling to replace Pierre Poilievre in the long term. Aligning Conservatives with Trump, while not surprising, is not helping the Conservative profile in Canada. That's the number one thing that Pierre Poilievre has to worry about. So how do you handle this if you're Poilievre? Because you can't overreact, right? Like, there's got to be strategy here. You can't kick him out of the party. That doesn't look good, does it? Doesn't that look a bit insecure?
Yeah, I guess it does. I don't know if I'd you mean like to kick him out of caucus completely?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't know if I would do that, but I mean, I don't know. It's been, how long has it been since he went down there? Like at least a week and a bit, right? 2 weeks even now?
Something like that.
Yeah, so I think that the proper way to have dealt with it would have been to have a conversation with him prior to him going down. I don't know if that conversation happened. I'm going to guess that it didn't. Then I guess the next best time is to have the conversation with him when he gets back. I don't know if that conversation happened, given that he then went on to Breitbart, right? And then to complain very openly to not just like a mainstream right-wing conservative publication, but a further right, U.S. publication and outlet. So I don't know. Like, I think there has to be some sort of discipline going on, or a frank conversation with Jivani. And I guess the next best time to have done that would be today. So let's see. But they need something, because this certainly isn't helping the Conservatives. And I think prior to this, you had signals from Pierre Poilievre that he was at least going to try and cooperate with the Liberals to ensure that Parliament would continue to function. And then you get Jivani kind of going down and just blowing up that entire message by referring to us as having a hissy fit. And by the way, I think, to your point about like qualifying something as a hissy fit, it's important to recognize what Jamil is actually referring to as us having a hissy fit. We didn't start the annexation talk. We didn't start the trade war. We didn't start violating Kuzma, right? That was all done on behalf of the U.S. And Jivani is essentially blaming Canadians for having a bit of a backbone and standing up to a much more, powerful aggressor in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, well, just flip it around and ask the rhetorical question, what would the public's response be if Pierre Poilievre referred to the Canadian response to American economic aggression as a hissy fit, as an anti-American hissy fit? Like, he would never, I mean, it would just be over, right? I mean, it would be an insane thing for the leader of a political party to say about the people that he's trying to convince to vote for him.
Yeah, I mean, it would. And I, if you think about I think this would have been prior to the election, but prior to the last federal election, I forget exactly what the outlet was, but Pierre Poilievre had sat down with a podcast and I'm paraphrasing here because I'm doing it from memory, but there was a line where he basically said, it's not the Americans' fault, it's our fault, and that we were the ones that were being stupid. Like Canada and Canadians were the ones being stupid in this. There's a reason why Pierre Poilievre has never repeated that, right? Post-election or even during the election, because I think not just with polling, but you get kind of like the vibe of a crowd, right? When you're a political leader and you're having conversations, you're out there shaking hands, talking to regular people. And that's certainly not the feedback that you would get at something like that. I understand that there's a sizable chunk of conservative supporters, voters, whatever, that are terminally online and do align themselves with MAGA, but that is by no means enough to win an election, let alone a sizable chunk to work with to replace the current, voter pool of accessible voters for the Conservatives.
Yeah, Ken K says it sounds like he's a MAGA shill, not a Canadian leader. Real talkers, I will acknowledge the number of couch-related comments in the live chat today. I'm not Supriya, you'd be very impressed. A lot of references to a couch fucker. Some people wondering, 80s Fanify wondering, did he bring couch swatches with him? But I'm not going to read those, guys, because that just wouldn't be professional. Lightning Smith says nobody besides conservatives takes Jivani seriously. Eileen says being tight with JD Vance is not the flex that Jivani thinks it is. Nick D says it seems like Jivani can't read the room. It seems like he doesn't respect the oath that he swore as an MP. It looks like, I mean, if you take a look at polling as well, you put this on our radar, but 338 Canada, our good buddy Philippe Fournier, who joined us after Conservative Convention just a short time ago, looks like Jivani's seat could actually be in trouble. It could be up in play, I should say. He could be in trouble.
Yeah, and look, I'm the first one to say this, of course, is that the only poll that counts is the one on election day.
True.
Campaigns matter, et cetera, et cetera. But that certainly, if you're Jamil or you're any of these conservatives that, in the last election you won your seat and now you're seeing this sort of polling kind of converge on you as not being too favorable, I don't know why he would continue to go down this route. He doesn't seem like the kind of person who kind of backs off something once he grabs a hold of it. So I will be really interesting to see how those numbers in Bowmanville, Oshawa North look like a month from now, 2 months from now, and then certainly going into an election. But I think, if I was a conservative MP, I would be very concerned about some of my colleagues, Mr. Jivani included, who are unable to read the room. And I would also be talking to the leader's office about some sort of action, because you certainly don't want this to create some sort of bifurcation within the Conservative caucus where you have a few MPs or a number of MPs who agree with Jivani's assessment or agree with his, solo trade mission down to the U.S., as you referred to it as, versus another, faction of the Conservative Party who's looking at this going like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? You're ruining our chances.
Yeah, I mean, but it does feel like a solo trade mission, doesn't it? I mean, it was
yeah.
but it's like that implies that he'd be able to do something. Like there was nothing to be done there. I don't know. He's
like
he's
calling
not,
it a trade mission gives it too much
well,
gravitas.
yeah,
you mean?
like I mean,
Yeah.
I guess even if it was like a member of like a liberal minister or even a liberal MP that was down there, at least you can say I'm going to go back and and I have a meeting scheduled with the prime minister. I'm going to be checking in with our minister, our foreign affairs minister, like whatever, minister of trade, like whatever. We have a meeting set up. We're going to talk. Our government's planning on tabling this, or we're going to move toward that. Like, what's this now? Like, it's not. He comes back and he's got nothing. He tells Breitbart, Jivani does. I said, let me go down there. I know the VP. Let me go chat with them. See if there's anything I can do to help build a bridge between our two governments. Because right now it's been 3.5 months of very little dialogue. So I got a chance to meet the president as well. He says, good conversations. I found them very receptive to a lot of what I had to say. And he says, I think most Canadians saw that and said, great, this guy's trying to help. But a lot of the liberals in my country, he says, just had a total freak out. He says, I've been called a Nazi. Technically, he was referred to as Unity Mitford. So I guess it was implied that he was like a Nazi sympathizer. It's not a flattering comparison. He says, I've been called all kinds of juvenile names in response to this. He says, from my point of view, this is trying to save Canadian jobs. And these guys have tried to turn this into petty schoolyard insults. So it's been an insane week and a half trying to figure out how to get some of these folks to grow up and mature so we can hopefully get a deal done with the president. So that's his take on this. Ms. Katie says in our live chat, she might be onto something. Jivani doesn't care if he loses his seat, you guys. Says he's been successful setting himself up as Canadian Charlie Kirk. Jivani had a career in media before this, right? I mean, like, it wasn't like he was angling to get in politics forever. At least he didn't give that impression.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually. I hadn't even really considered that this whole thing is like
One
a
term and out.
relaunch. Yeah, exactly. Into another pivot. That's very possible.
Hey, not to drag David Hurley into this, host of the Hurley Burley and host of the Curse of Politics podcast. Did you hear his comment about?
Yeah, it was really fucking dumb.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that just quickly before we move on. He said that he believes that Jamil Jivani is too unattractive to succeed in politics, and I kind of went, ooh. And the guests that were on his show with him, on the spot, I watched it on video, and they're both just like shaking their heads, like, no comment, not responding to this. Do you think that's a thing?
Maybe it's a thing, but I don't think in this situation it's a thing. And I certainly think that if you look like you shouldn't be calling into question what other people look like physically.
There we go.
Then so that's what you were waiting. That's what you and Johnny were waiting to set me up.
I wasn't setting you up to say it.
I think somebody else and I'll go.
But it was just like Mean Girls. I didn't want to say it.
Yeah.
No, but Mean Girls isn't a movie if it's you got to sort of be at a certain to say a certain.
Yeah, in order for you to say you can't sit with us, okay, because you're not wearing pink or whatever.
Yes.
You got to be able to look like you can make it into the plastics if we're sticking with the Mean Girl reference. Okay.
There we go. Nailed it.
Yeah.
Johnny's role as this show's official pop culture correspondent may be at risk now that Supriya on the fly was able to dig deep like that. He's just nodding his head. Yeah, we'll see. Okay. Hey, you have been helping us stay up to speed on what's happening with Canada-India relations in particular. I mean, this has been, the story is deep, and there's so many layers to this, obviously, but there has been a new development, and I feel like the Real Talk audience is going to be one of the first to kind of get the details on this from you because you've been keeping such a close eye on it.
Yeah, so let's start off with the fact that the only reason why we know as much as we do on India's, alleged activity in Canada when it comes to the alleged murder or the alleged extortions, arsons, whatever, is largely because of this ongoing case in the U.S. And they had an unsealed indictment, and that shed a lot of light on India's operations, particularly as it pertains to those in the Sikh community. And now we have the person that was alleged to have been the proxy for the Indian government to then carry out some of these, alleged hits, as it were. He's pled guilty. Mr. Nikhil Gupta, he pled guilty for 3 counts: murder for hire, conspiracy to commit murder for hire, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. This was all in the Southern District of New York. Sentencing will be scheduled for later this year, but the fact that he has this guilty plea, right? He's pled guilty. This has significant consequences because, I mean, this means if had he not pled guilty, India could then maintain that this is just allegations, but he's pled guilty. So that means in the judicial, record, he's established a conspiracy to kill a U.S. citizen on U.S. soil at the direction of an Indian government employee. The alleged direction of the Indian government employee, it should also be pointed out, was working in the cabinet secretariat, which is where their foreign intelligence service would be. So this puts an intense amount of pressure on, New Delhi from Washington. I think it also, this guilty plea raises a lot of questions about the Najjar assassination here in Canada. Because, again, remember, the Modi government's claim this entire time has been that the RCMP, as well as the former government, made up the allegations and that it was, all of this was about vote bank politics or whatever. And now we're seeing that's not the case. And again, if you look at the release that was put out by the Southern District of New York, where this guilty plea was received, they make reference to Najjar and the murder to Najjar in that. And I think we should be very cautious about how we deal with India going forward. And we're just not seeing that from this current Carney government.
So what do you make of this? I'm sure you saw this photo posted by Anita Anand. This is, Canada's foreign affairs minister posing with her Indian counterpart, right? Saying we're discussing, I'm showing it right now, the Canada-India relationship, the work ahead to advance our shared interests. Says Canada remains committed to constructive engagement. Says I look forward to continuing our efforts in India. It's on my screen right now. You can see it. This is like within 24 hours of all this news dropping.
It's the dumbest motherfucking thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I can't imagine any other situation where we have a guilty plea entered into the U.S., so we know that their judicial system is, above board and is comparable to Canada's, list everything that they've done, and then to have the foreign affairs minister with her counterpart taking a smiley picture with, by the way, no visible Canadian flags in the background. The only flags you see are India's. I'm not sure why they did that. That doesn't make for the best optics. But I've never seen anything so tone deaf in my life. And the only explanation that you have from this is because not only is Minister Anand quite comfortable with doing so, but the entire Carney government is quite comfortable with doing so. And they're basically telling members of the Indian diaspora, particularly the Sikh community, who have been raising these issues for years and years and years, that they just don't really care about them. And it's more important for them to normalize relations with India, who, by the way, is a country that was found by the public inquiry into foreign interference to be the number 2 country to interfere in our domestic politics, behind only China. Can you imagine a situation where it was found that somebody working on behalf of Russia had killed a Canadian or was trying to kill a Canadian or was alleged to have killed a Canadian, and then the very next day, our foreign minister is taking a picture with their foreign minister with only Russian flags in the background?
Yeah, it's nuts. I'm not.
China, Iran, like name a bunch. I guess Iran's different because fine, we don't have relations with them. Russia, you could say that as well to a degree. But so let's go. So then let's do China. Like if this had happened, would that be the reaction? I really don't think so.
Doubt it. So what do you think? Like, what would be one step? What would be one response you'd like to see from the feds that you think would be appropriate in this circumstance, more appropriate than this photo op?
Look, the number one thing is don't do the photo op. The number 2 thing is like when you do have these vehement denials from India, and again, the folks that watch me regularly on with you will remember that a few months ago, the High Commissioner of India went on with Vashi Kapelos on CTV and effectively said that the RCMP made up the allegations and that India was waiting for an apology from the RCMP. There was no public repudiation of those remarks from the federal government. Anita and Anand should have gone on to, back onto Vashi, done the whole circuit, and publicly repudiate and rebut those remarks. But we didn't get that. And I think Canadians need to be asking ourselves, why aren't we getting that? Why are the interests of Canadians in Canada and our freedom of expression and our sovereignty, why isn't that the number one thing that this federal government is concerned with? And I certainly understand that we need to diversify trade. I certainly understand that relations need a reset, and there are, important aspects of diplomacy, and we need to be pragmatic and et cetera, et cetera. But that shouldn't mean giving a complete free pass for a representative of a foreign government to come onto a Canadian television program and shit all over our national police force.
Ms. Kitty in our chat says they've seen some recent polling, like issues polling in front of Canadians, said India's polling right now is like 3%. Whether that's awareness or priorities, I'm not sure. Does the country need to wake up to this?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I thought we woke up to it a little bit, right, at some point, but
it feels like they're more awake to it on the West Coast. Is that safe to say?
Oh, yeah, I think that's probably safe to say. And it's because, like, on the West Coast,
people are getting
Surrey's
killed?
being terrorized. Yeah. So I don't know. And my perspective, I don't think you can talk about extortion in at least the South Asian Indian sense, Indian diaspora sense, without also, talking about the sort of alleged state sponsoring of that extortion. And we're having a very weird half-assed conversation about all of this.
Yeah, half-assed feels like the right way to put it. Before we run out of time, I got to ask you about this report in the New York Times. This just seems like 100% a bad idea to me. Meta's plan on facial recognition, smart glasses, you've heard this. Meta plans to add facial recognition to its smart glasses as soon as this year. I'm referencing a report at techcrunch.com. People can check it out or check it out in the New York Times. Internally known, the feature is being called name tag, and it would allow smart glasses wearers, so if you own and you're wearing the smart glasses, to identify people and get information about them through Meta's AI assistant using facial recognition. Meta says the plans could change. They've been deliberating since early last year on how to release a feature that addresses safety and privacy risks. This just seems like a terrible idea.
It's insane, right? And if you actually, like, there is I think the New York Times kind of got into this a little bit more than the TechCrunch article did, but there was an internal memo that Meta put out and was basically saying, well, we're bound to get some pushback, but because of the political environment, civil liberties organizations are going to be so busy that they won't have time to really push back on how dystopian and what an invasion of privacy these glasses are for Meta. So
yeah, their quote was, "We will launch during a dynamic political environment where many civil society groups we would expect to attack us would have their resources focused on other concerns."
Which is an insane thing to say out loud. But here we are. I don't like these. If I see you wearing these glasses, I'm like knocking them off your face, man. Don't come around me.
You're not going to know if I'm wearing them. Like, look at here. I'll call them up here. They just look like regular Ray-Bans. Like, they're just normal. Look at them. They're just regular.
Don't wear Ray-Bans around me going forward.
Yeah. Well, who's the one that showed up to the real? Who is the only person wearing sunglasses inside at the Real Talk holiday party, Supriya?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Literally the only person.
It was me.
Everyone was going to be so impressed because Supriya's walking up, calling people by name, providing brief back. Everyone's like, how does she know everybody? That would be the one positive. Of course, because I think I'm pretty good with faces and very bad with names. And so when I see someone, typically I know if I've met them before or talked to them before, but I can't always place the name. And if I could just have a little like on the glass, and it's like former city councilor, like whatever, from this year to this year, and their dog's name is Mavis. And then I can walk up and be like, "Counselor, how's Mavis?" And then all of a sudden I win favor I can see how that might be a positive. But to be serious for a second, the fact that I mean, I'm even thinking like going to like the worst case scenario, like child predators. You know, people
I mean,
wearing
that's where
these,
I went.
right?
Like, I went to worst case.
Go to worst
I wasn't
case right
thinking of
away.
Mavis. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just always thinking about how something can benefit me personally.
It's fair.
But in this case, yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just think like what sort of like nefarious type folks can do with this, and the options are endless.
Yeah.
Right. In particular, I mean, what about old people that could get scammed, right? What happens if all of a sudden, is it going to show you like the names of, I don't know. I mean, I know I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about here, but I think we're all sort of like in the same boat where the new technology is coming out that's blowing everybody's minds, and we're not even really equipped to understand the depth of impact that it would have. But imagine if the facial recognition software gave you access to like a senior citizen's name and like maybe some family insights, and all of a sudden you're walking that senior to go buy $5,000 or $50,000 worth of, you know, whatever, Amazon gift cards or whoever the RCMP are telling us they're getting scammed these days. I mean, I don't know. This has been a thing, you know, for more than a century, where detractors around new technology will say, maybe we're as far as we need to go. Maybe we don't need any more technology. You know, all of the music that we could possibly want access to is available on our phones. Like, you know, we can do all of our banking on. I feel like I'm good. I don't know if I need more technology right now.
I mean, I definitely don't need this technology, so
I don't want this technology. But the thing is, like, we can be conscientious objectors, but other people can still get them, and we will just be. It's their world, and we're just playing in it, right? Like, how do you opt out? It's gonna be people going back to COVID. A bunch of people are gonna be going around wearing masks again, masks and sunglasses. Everyone's gonna be dressed up as bank robbers again.
Yeah, it's actually probably better for you to wear a hat and sunglasses than a mask and sunglasses. But yeah.
Really?
Well, I guess if you're wearing a mask and sunglasses, it's one thing. But if you're just wearing a mask, you want the sunglasses.
I might go with the whole shebang. I might do.
There you go.
Hat,
beekeeper suit,
mask, and sunglasses.
There you
know,
go.
and then
It's a
someone
good
will be
look.
like, "Look at this guy. Thinks he's fucking big shit. This idiot doesn't have to disguise himself." It's good to see your face again. In all seriousness, through the from the tough stuff all the way through to the maybe sometimes trivial stuff, though I don't think this is trivial. We'll keep an eye on this meta story. There you are, our steady voice, and we appreciate you, Supriya. Thanks for doing it.
Thanks, Ryan.
You got it. First episode of every week, Supriya Dwivedi joins us in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. I want to get your take on those sunnies, those glasses from Meta. It just seems wild to me. It seems like something nobody really wants. I don't know about you. Let us know what you think. If you're listening to this later, send us a note to talk@ryanjesperson.com. Is UKAN Youth Services on your radar right now, friends? You can find them online at ukan.ca. They're building hope right now, and Real Talk is here for it, helping them through this capital campaign as they're giving Edmonton's young people the space to dream, grow, and build their future. The team at UKAN has moved into a new home just a few blocks away, as a matter of fact, from our studio, and they're raising $2.5 million right now to create a space where young people feel a sense of belonging. More space means more opportunities. That means more lives transformed. They've got a number of different programs. You can check them all out on the website. Again, ukan.ca, where this new location is going to factor in a big way. The Road to Work program is one of those where young people between 18 and 25 participate. They apply, they're accepted, and then they participate. It's a paid program. You earn while you learn. And of course, you're going to glean the tools. Participants will to enter the construction, road building, and traffic safety industries. That starts with pretty basic stuff, from learning how to run a circular saw, run a power drill, whatever the case is. The Road to Work program makes that happen, and UKAN's new shop is a big, big deal. If you own a construction company, perhaps you work in a construction adjacent industry, consider a partnership, maybe a donation today to UKAN Youth Services at ukan.ca. Every Thursday here on the show, we feature an Alberta win presented by our friends at Play Alberta. Love the most recent one from Real Talker Michael, who crunched the numbers and determined that Alberta has more Olympians in Italy per capita than any other province or territory in Canada. Amazing work, Michael. You can send us your Alberta win, a good news story from your neck of the woods, an Alberta story that you've been keeping an eye on, maybe an Albertan making an impact on the national or international stage. Albertans are winning every single day on the Play Alberta app and at playalberta.ca with hundreds of popular casino games to choose from, some of them with jackpots worth millions, plus a major casino winner every hour, and all revenue stays right here in the province of Alberta. If you like what you're hearing, you can download the app today. That's Play Alberta, and get started with casino, sports, and lottery all in one app. You can find more details at playalberta.ca. You must be 18 or over to play. And when you gamble, please use your game sense. Athabasca University accepting new students today and tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. It's Canada's open university with online degrees and courses designed so you can complete your education wherever and whenever it works for you. Means you don't have to wait till September or January to start a new program or course. You can browse the entire offerings. I mean, there's hundreds of them online at athabascau.ca, including flexible grad programs like that Athabasca MBA, plus student supports and other resources. You can learn about the AU Advantage again. Check out the website today. Take 2 minutes on there. It could be a big step toward your future by visiting athabascau.ca. And as it is Heart Month, we're so proud here at Real Talk to be supporting the Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation, in particular, the C.K. Huey Heart Center. February is a wonderful time to focus on raising awareness about cardiovascular health and the steps that we can take to improve heart health. You know, heart disease affects nearly everybody. Whether it's directly or through a loved one, it remains the second leading cause of death for both men and women across the country. An important reminder to prioritize heart health and take action to reduce the risks that we can control. And that's why coming up on February 27th, that's a Friday, you're invited to Heartbeat Hideaway. This is an intimate evening in support of life-saving cardiac care at the Royal Alexandra Hospital. This evening is going to unfold in the atrium at Sabor, a wonderful new location in downtown Edmonton, where architectural beauty meets elevated comfort. It's the kind of place that invites you to linger. Let's put it like that. A night of great food, cocktails, and connection in support of the care, the people, and the technology that saves lives every single day. Again, that's Friday, February 27th, starting at 7 o'clock at Atrium at Sabor. And you can get your tickets today by visiting heartbeathideaway.ca or just check out royalalex.org. You can see all of the featured stories around Heart Month, and in particular, the amazing work that's being done at the C.K. Huey Heart Center at the Royal Alexandra Hospital. This show's technical director, John Hicks. I don't know if I would say you're big into tech, but you're pretty big into tech. You might not be like the first person in the world to have every new device, but I would say you're pretty tech forward.
It's in my job title.
Generally speaking, technical director. You've always got the tech watch. Your computer stuff's always up to speed.
Yeah.
Would you be in the market for these Meta glasses with facial recognition software?
Not yet, but I have friends who have the Meta glasses. I have a bunch of friends who wear them all the time. It kind of freaks me out, but I do like some of the security features so far that have, like, I can tell when they're recording. There's a light on the front and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it does make me weary for, like, the off-brand ones. Like, the ones from Meta are fine, but you can go on Amazon, you can go on anywhere and get Chinese ones that you can clearly record people, do minor, not like the highlighted crazy facial recognition, but they can sense things. They've integrated AI into some of them where you just, well, I mean, it's the same way you look at your phone and you open ChatGPT or you open your Apple AI, you put it on an image, it tells you what it is or an item, whatever. But here's the thing. I think, any technology we get our hands on, the government's been using for probably at least a decade. It's like when we had cell phones with GPS, we thought it was like, oh my God, GPS is crazy. But like the military had already been using that for 8 to 10 years before that. So I think this stuff is already around in ways that we aren't even aware of right now and probably couldn't believe. And slowly it's going to come to the public and we're going to have access to it. And I think you can be scared of it. You can push back against it, but you're just going to be one of the people not using it. And people who love tech and people who just want to see what it is, and even people who are scared of it but are like, I want to understand it and see what it is, so I know when it's being used against me. It's going it's going to start being used. So.
The Meta glasses in past, correct me if I'm wrong, because, we see guys that like snowboard with them or use them at events. The guy at a pair at the Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic, you can use them to record what you're seeing, like a POV recording.
You can just say it to it. Start recording. Meta start recording.
Right. Yeah. But the facial recognition software to me that provides information on who people are. I think it was Matthew in here that said this is basically a stalker's wet dream, which is kind of what it feels like. I don't know if do you want somebody coming up to you on the street that recognized you based on information that their Meta glasses gave them and starts out like that's the last thing I would want.
I mean, but it's already on the internet. I mean, Meta's just using AI to give it to you instantly. I could go to your Instagram and find out everything about you and your family right now. In 5
but you
minutes.
don't know if I'm walking down the street somewhat incognito that I'm me, right?
Yeah,
if the glasses, I don't know, it just feels like it's giving.
I think we're inches away from this already. So, you know what I mean? And that's what AI is doing is. And glasses and things like this and the tools we use in our phone now that are like making us quicker than ever, even though it's not our brains working. It's a computer system, but we're already inches away from this, right? It's just combining it. It's giving you that information immediately. And I understand what you're saying. Like maybe they wouldn't know it was me, whatever. But if you're interested in someone, I mean, it is kind of weird if you're just walking down the street reading people's faces.
Because that will happen. That will happen.
I mean, sure, but who has time for that?
Well, the exact type of person you don't want finding you.
There's always going to be people who use stuff for nefarious reasons,
there
right?
are.
But I would consider like me being at an event or a party, not remembering someone's name, hitting my glasses. Okay, that's Ryan Jesperson. I remember, go to his Instagram. That's where I saw him at this event. Then you go up and introduce. That's the things most people would use it for. But yes, there's always going to be people who go down the rabbit hole.
Ken K says the Amazon Ring sharing doorbell videos, Meta glasses using facial recognition. This is Orwellian. That was a conversation that was prompted after that Super Bowl ad, the Ring cameras. And they were talking about how, it portrays it as this really feel-good story. If you want to connect with people, present the story of the lost dog, right? And then the commercial shows these Ring cameras working together to track the lost dog as it runs through the neighborhood and the family is reunited with the dog. But everybody's pointing out that this is building and Amazon is able to monetize basically like a nationwide, or it goes beyond the United States, of course. I mean, there's a lot of them here in Canada. Ultimately, an international surveillance tool where if you have, at some point, let's say you have every second or every third or every fourth house on the block that's upgraded to these Ring doorbells, these doorbell cameras. On a plus, I would say, if we want to, we spent a lot of time earlier in this episode, and I'm not going to draw direct lines, don't worry. But a lot of the work that police do, we're obviously very grateful for, and we want to assist police when we can. Everybody talks about how you back the blue. If police are looking for someone that's been abducted or a murder suspect or what have you, it's a great resource if you have all these doorbell cameras in the neighborhood. But if you have a situation where a police officer, law enforcement officer is not acting according to the code, is not obeying the law, or there are other implementations, manifestations of this technology that could prove to be really negative. People talk about a surveillance state or a nanny state or Big Brother. These things work together. I don't know that the average person thinks when they're installing a Ring doorbell camera that they're signing on to add their home to the list of basically surveillance cameras that Amazon is building, millions and millions of them across the country. I think that a lot of us, myself included, and I try to be as critical as possible and as thoughtful as possible about implementing this type of thing, but I don't know that everybody thinks about really what's going on. You look at the surface, you think of the convenience. I can check to see when my Amazon package was dropped off on my front porch, or I can check to see who it is ringing my doorbell. That's convenient. That's wonderful. But when you start to look at it as like a surveillance network and you're part of it, how many people have actually considered that,
Yeah, nobody reads the fine print, but I do. I think every new technology that is out now that you are using for simple, innocent, I guess I would use as a word, purposes such as, like you just said, to see when my package is there, etc. Somebody else, first the military, and then after that, who owns a corporation, has already, data collection is the biggest moneymaker in the world.
For sure.
You collect it, you sell it to other people. So anytime something comes out where it collects data, where it collects video, where it collects information on people, the first thing I always think is, who's making the dough off this? And where in the 17-page thing that you agree to terms, when you sign up, scroll down, install the app, you're in a hurry, don't read it and click the box. Of course you're being swindled into it, right? But you can't really stop this stuff nowadays. I mean, back in the day, it was CCTV cameras we were worried about, right?
Yeah.
And now, I mean, God, I was looking at how many CCTV cameras China has. They estimate 400 to 700 million. There's more cameras monitoring people in China than there is people that live in Canada. It's wild in most countries, for that matter. But, I mean, there's benefits to it. We can put up a chart and go, here are the risks, here are the benefits of all the technologies we love and hate today. But I think the main thing is to get associated with them. If you're scared of them, if you're fearful of them, if you don't want them to come in existence, the least you should do is be well-versed on exactly what they do and how to use them.
Yeah, RS500 says we need to ask why we are creating these technologies rather than the fact that we can. Noob says Meta is already intrusive and toxic enough. He says, I ain't touching those glasses with a 100-foot pole. Native Calgarian, what's up? Nice to see you in the live chat. Says cops will love those glasses. Justin, thanks for your YouTube channel membership. Justin doing amazing work, by the way, on our Real Talk community chat on Discord for our Patreon supporters and our YouTube channel members. Thanks, Justin, for that. He says the Meta glasses are interesting, but a pretty niche use case. He says he actually bought a pair a couple of years ago when he was in Austin at F1. How good is F1 in Austin? Justin says, I got some cool shots, but I haven't used them much since. And Bustion says, remember when tech made the world better? Dwayne's wondering what would Corey Hart have to say about those glasses. Nice little reference. I got the song in my head now. Thank you very much. JJ Needs a Nap says, I have no intention of ever owning smart glasses, but can you imagine the levels you could take your spy game to?
That's what I was just going to say. When we started this conversation, I'm glad you reminded me. Isn't this every kid's dream? When we were younger, we watched James Bond and he put on the glasses and it gave him all the information immediately on his enemies. And he was just a step ahead of them all the time. And then, it's a big difference when that stuff comes to fruition and it's right in front of you. And it's like, grab this now. You could have it. I know we all have fears and there's always going to be people who use them for nefarious situations. But I mean, I think eventually, I've considered buying Meta glasses several times, and I just kind of don't want to because Mark Zuckerberg, it bothers me. He looks like an alien. But eventually I think I'll buy some form of, you know what I mean? Even when you're driving or it can alert you to things. And I can just think of so many ways it could help you than to be afraid of. But
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've never felt my age as much as I do in this moment at an advanced middle age. I'm thinking back to the movies, and I can't think of one off the top of my head, but you can Terminator or whatever. Think of all the movies where the eyepiece comes down
100%.
And it gives you the reading and
100%.
and it's like, yeah, sure. Part of it is cool. Part of it is the word dystopian was shared in our chat earlier. Part of it is as a user and as what's the opposite? The person that's being subjected to the technology, the target. Let's say the user and the target. Yeah. There's going to be different perspectives. As the user, you're right. I mean, convenient, interesting. Kind of adds layers to your efficiencies. We think if we took away the tech, right? If you took away something as simple as text messaging, if I had to call somebody every time I send a text now, that's a very basic technology, but it's a big one, right? Or online banking or things like that. But when you are the subject of it, when you're the target of the technology, that's where I go, I don't know if maybe you want to opt out. And there's a bunch of people leaving comments in here about folks that, may kind of withdraw from society to varying degrees just to kind of get away from it.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. But for me, we were just talking about the driving. I have ADHD. So for me, I have to, and it's hard because it's the exact opposite of what I do, but I have to pay more attention when I'm driving because I tend to my thoughts go off and then I'll be like, how did I get through the last 3 lights? I don't even remember if they were green or red, right? So something with Meta glasses while I'm driving. I know someone commented here, oh, you'll be distracted by a text in your eye. It's the exact opposite. You put them into driving mode and now it's going to, just like the spy movies we talked about. A dog runs out in the street, it puts a little red box around it and warns me or you know what I mean? There's a light coming up. You're not slowing down. I can see all these ways it could help me, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the scary part is, I think the scary part for everyone is personal privacy, right?
Yeah.
That's the main concern.
Totally. Tracy D says, I've had the police come to my door, ask me for video from a particular day and time. Me too, Tracy. And we were able to provide it. And it was relating. They didn't give us a ton of details, but they let us know it was related to a crime they were investigating in the neighborhood. And I don't know. I mean, in order for our neighborhood to be more safe, I would like to cooperate with that investigation. I mean, that's part of policing. I mean, I had a vehicle badly vandalized. I told you this story downtown, and it just so happened to be in probably the one pocket of downtown that has absolutely no camera coverage on it. And so we went around trying to get footage and couldn't get any. So it's nice when you do have it. Ken says paying out of your pocket for your own surveillance. What a business model. Amanda's pointing out that trend of people plugging their photo into ChatGPT to turn themselves into a cartoon. Says chat now owns your photo and face. They can now use your face to generate AI images. Ambustion says, the Edmonton police in their hometown is literally getting a facial recognition system. Tommy Temper says Tesla's collecting people's driving data. Meta Modern says the idea that you would have any control over what information is being sent from your Meta glasses is incredibly laughable. I think I'm probably inclined to agree with that as well. Joe Gerba's wondering, how do you get into that Park Power chat? Joe, you're in the Park Power chat. There you go. Anytime you watch us live on our live stream, you can comment on any of the social media platforms and you'll be there. You may be talking about the Real Talk Discord, and I can show you this. I can show you the screen for the on the record part of it. This is the Real Talk community chat. When you sign up to support the show on Patreon, or if you're a Real Deal or Real VIP YouTube channel member, you get access to that exclusive 24/7 Real Talk community chat. Go to ryanjesperson.com and click on Connect for more details there.
I see Noob saying, well, you can use driving mode on your phone. And I do use that, but you still have to look down at it every now and then, right? That's where the glasses would help you out. But I get what people are afraid of. I also think it's kind of sad that, like, no matter when things come out to help us, especially tech nowadays, we automatically think, like, everyone on earth is going to use this for the bad reasons, right? It's like nobody has any faith in humanity, but I do.
Do you?
Of course. I understand that everyone's out there trying to make a quick buck or there's evil people everywhere. But in my head, like that's why I brought up data collection. It's the most evil money-making thing nowadays, but it's also like how fast are we gaining research on everything we absolutely want and need to know, and it's helping us in ways and faster than it ever has before, right? But of course, there's always the pendulum swing on the other side where, someone's using it to make money or do horrible things, right? And I don't know, maybe the data collection is also helping us get those people, like you just talked about with doorbell cams. I know you're suspect when an officer from the RCMP or police comes to your door, and I've had it too, where they say, hey, do you have doorbell cam from this time to this time? But when we're talking about a kid being abducted,
totally,
or an elderly person being robbed and murdered, of course,
or a string of B&Es or vandalism or whatever, right? I'd be happy to, right? I'm not trying to protect people that are fucking up the neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not my goal.
Yeah.
I don't know. Wytream says there's not a single good reason for Meta glasses. There is no positive for them. I think when it's basic stuff, and again, guys, I'm not going to apologize for this because I think a lot of you are probably with me in this boat. I'm I don't know how you would describe. I'm almost like a sort of a reluctant adopter of technology.
Yeah.
Right. And so I kind of have stuff. I don't know, I have, what do you call my
but
watch? What's my watch? It's like an analog. I just have a normal watch.
And I got
and you've
we're
got the
different,
techie one. And I just want the normal stuff. I get frustrated with my vehicle because I have they love this vehicle I'm driving from Mercedes, and I'm grateful for the partnership, obviously. But it's if you were, let me spin this into a positive way to say it. If you were the most tech-advanced, tech-forward person on planet Earth, you would love the vehicles that are out there these days. But me, it's almost I almost want to I'm not talking beeping when I'm about to crash. I like that stuff. I like the stuff that helps me out, but all the stuff that is bringing my phone and integrating it into the screens and doing this and letting me know when that's happening and apps popping up on I'm like, geez, man.
I'm getting used to it now. I like it. I like everything. I like when I go on my laptop or my phone, the app that's on my laptop or my watch or my phone has already popped up there, and you just kind of seamlessly transition. But I can get how it could irk some people who aren't used to it. But for me, looking at you, I think you're the guy who wants his life easier. You're the guy who wants things a little quicker. And,
I know,
and
but
done,
I'm also like a control freak, and I don't, you know what I mean? I'm a control freak. And and that's sort of integrating into everything, even with ChatGPT and stuff like that. It's just, I'm always, when I'm looking at it, I feel like, and I would rather be the type of person that's a little bit paranoid and skeptical as opposed to the one that just plunges in.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
I think a lot of people, and we're all guilty of this. Maybe there's what percent of the Real Talk audience, 2%, maybe 5%, that when you sign up for a new service or you adopt a new technology or you're plugging your Ethernet cable into something or whatever the case is, transferring, like maybe you got a new laptop and you're transferring it, who actually scrolls through and like reads all the stuff? None of us do. No. We scroll to the bottom, we hit I agree, and then it moves on. We don't read any of it,
we
right?
know. And they say we can take 10% of your white blood cells and
sure, right?
bone marrow.
We're going to take it while you
want.
sleep. You'll never know it's gone. Neola says, please don't fall for the it may help one person when it surveils thousands. She says, choose another brand. Neola says she was a Ring user, the doorbell, and she says, and she's now looking to replace it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, at this point, you can't slow down. Like, you can't reverse Ring doorbell cams. And, like, facial recognition has been used for so long now. It's being used in airports. It's being used for security, for shoplifting and simple stuff like that. I would err on the side of, like, I want to get in here. I want to have this benefit me as well. And if it's something as simple, like I was talking about, I don't think I go out there and walk down the street and try and find everything I want to know about strangers walking by me. I don't really give a crap.
Yeah.
But I definitely would use it as someone who is a little, has a bit of brain fog in the mornings and tends to forget people's names and where I met them because I meet so many every week and weekend. I would use that to just kind of queue up my, when I'm out at events, or if I need to know about something immediately, like we're on the show right now. If I need to hey, Meta Glasses, read this article and give me the Coles notes in 5 sentences in front of my eyes.
Yeah.
That stuff would benefit me.
Be a big deal. I'm delivering a keynote later today to about 800 public school teachers, including Jillian, who let us know in the chat earlier today that she's thinking of heckling me through my address. I wonder if perhaps while I'm delivering a keynote, I could just have like a teleprompter
100%
running on my eyes, running on the screen, and I could just sit and read it.
We'll give people a behind the curtain. Ryan does not have a teleprompter here like he used to when he was on television, but we considered it. Many times we've looked at buying one.
Yeah.
But how perfect would that be for you when you want to accurately
nice.
look at the camera and just read
It'd be good.
an article?
You'd never see me check a paper.
Ever.
Joe Gerba's back, by the way. If the name sounds familiar, Johnny, show my screen. Joe Gerba, you guys remember him? He joined us back in August. It was August 15th. Joe joined us. He's a wine importer. He imports fine wines, and he was talking to us about how Alberta wine drinkers, what did we say? Did we say they're getting corked? I think we said they're getting screwed. Did we say?
Yeah.
Anyway, Joe laid out how the government's new tax regime is really harming importers and purveyors of fine wines, including restaurants, which is awesome to see Joe in our chat. He says, it speaks to my tech infirmaries that I couldn't figure out the chat. He says, the most frustrating part of these inventions is that we never get an opportunity to debate and regulate things before they launch. And that would be an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, of course.
Because a lot of people, you have this discussion. I'm not saying that industry doesn't need to be regulated. Obviously it does. From the oil sands companies to big tech to whomever,
sure.
We need regulation for obvious reasons. And a lot of people, kind of the tone that they'll take is that government is too big, government interferes, government stands in the way, government needs to get out of the way.
Sure.
And to a certain degree, that is true. I mean, that would be framed as like red tape reduction, right? Let business flourish. Let business do what business does best. But Joe calling for more debate or more regulation of things before they launch is also an interesting point.
I think we should have that. But like even the things people are saying in the chat right now, like it'll be used for nefarious purposes, reading people's faces with glasses, blah, blah, blah. But I would flip the coin and say, like, let's say you as a parent have a child who's 4 to 8 years old and you're in a new place without your spouse, maybe you're, for business or vacation or whatever, and you're concerned about areas of the city and your glasses are reading people's faces and telling you who are potential felons, who have criminal records, who are pedophiles walking out. Like, I can think of a million ways that any argument you put that would scare you, you could put it on the flip and say it would make you feel safer. So...
Noob says, mark my words, almost every piece of tech that you're paying a subscription for will be turned into a brick in a few years, and you will be forced to buy a new one. He says, Nest thermostats, anyone? Well, I've been kind of envying that our house has just like a very boring thermostat. And when I go in a new house, and they have all the sexy digital thermostats.
Gotta have the Nest
gotta have
or
like the
something
cool like glow on
use
the wall.
Use it from your phone.
But Noob might be right. Alberta Girl says, ring doorbells do not stop or catch criminals, you guys. They just satisfy your curiosity, but they're not real security. Bad guys cover them up or wear masks.
Well, they're a piece in a puzzle if you look at a map where, like, you know, you go to any gas station, there's a CCTV camera, right? You go to any place where there's businesses of any kind, right? And so on a map, you could be like, here, I can see from here to here to here to here. And now that houses have ring cams, you just connect that line a little more. And yeah, it's a little scary to think that every inch of a major city, especially the urban populated areas, are mapped and being recorded. But I mean, I keep that in my head all the time. I try not to do anything. I always assume, unless you're in your apartment, home, or whatever with a door closed, I mean, if your window's open, assume that you could be recording. I mean, in this day and age, just be really careful. Like, that's,
but also try not to be paranoid.
That's the world we're living in.
Also try not to be paranoid.
But also have a good time and relax.
But also enjoy yourself, everybody.
We only get one life.
Well, we used to say that if you weren't paying for a service, you are the product. And now it feels like even if you are paying for it, you are still the product.
Yeah, you are. And I do agree with that comment about the brick. I think look at phones now. You have a phone for what? Maybe 2 years max? I know a lot of people in the chat are going to be like, I still have an iPhone 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
But like the majority of people, you're on a plan, you click a box, 2 years, it gets upgraded. I don't think companies that are creating top-of-the-line tech these days are thinking, I need this phone to last 20 years, 10 years, even 5 years. I think it comes out, and they know everyone's going to re-up in 2.5 to 3 years.
It's a whole different mindset.
I just got a new MacBook. Every 5 years I get one. Now, actually, I'm going to go back on that because now it has a top-of-the-line solid-state drive, which now I've extended it. I know I probably won't have to get a laptop for 10 years, but
bullshit, you're not getting a laptop for 10 years.
I was just going to add the caveat that like AI, quantum computing, all these things are probably going to make my laptop obsolete even faster.
But we look at how like our grandparents, maybe in some cases, depending on where you're at, our parents viewed things like appliance purchases, right?
Lifetime.
And I think back to my grandparents, and it's like, I wish I still had their fridge and their oven. Probably not very energy efficient, all things considered, but the design, like when you closed those fridge doors, it was like a vault. Yeah. And these things would, they would be sold on the fact that you could depend on them. Like, what was it? Wasn't it the Maytag man? Wasn't the whole shtick, the whole commercial? Was it the Maytag man was bored because he had nothing to do because Maytags never broke down kind of idea? Wasn't that the whole idea? And now maybe the price of appliances has dropped. I don't know if that's true or not, adjusted for inflation. I know some people are spending, you get like these sub-zero fridges. People are spending like 10 G's on fridges or more. But they're designed to be replaced.
Yeah.
Like if you're the average consumer spending an average amount of money on a stove or a fridge or a microwave or a blender or like any of these things, I think you look at it as though you kind of hope you get 10 years out of it. And when you don't, it doesn't make sense to repair them. Financially, it doesn't make sense. Why would you bring a guy out, for like an $800 repair on an oven when you can get a new one for $1,100 or whatever? I'm making up these prices.
No, you're right. And I know
that's where our mindsets are at.
This isn't the same as tech. We're talking about appliances. But Maytag, it used to be crazy the amount of warranty you got on appliances and stuff like that. But even appliances, microwaves, whatever, air fryers, and even stuff like ovens. Like, I think Maytag is now 1 year limited warranty. 10 years parts and labor. That's the way most appliances places are nowadays because they just assume in 5 to 10 years you're going to move, you're going to upgrade your home, you're going to buy better stuff, you're going to make things look nicer. And I think in part for that, and I would love, now this is exactly what I'm going to go research for tomorrow and come back to is researching how companies develop and produce their products nowadays, knowing that like most people re-up, especially with tech, appliances, whatever you have in your home, within a few years because the technology is just, nobody bought a VCR and thought, back then, nobody bought a VCR thinking there's going to be Blu-ray, and
No.
then they assumed they were just going to watch.
You're going to have a
these tapes
VCR for
20
30 years.
right?
Totally. 100%.
Nowadays, though, you buy tech or whatever, and you just assume there's going to be something better in 5 years.
Yeah, Tracy D says Appliance is only built to last like 5 years now. Says her parents' fridge was 40 years old and still running when they replaced it. I agree. By the way, others of you are reporting that like people are spending $30,000 on fridges. That's out of my stratosphere, but I'm not surprised. Everybody knows what Lorraine's referring
Smart
to
fridge.
here. When Lorraine says those Harvest Gold and green fridges are still running, says the new ones maybe 3 or 4 years. You remember those Harvest
Yeah.
Gold, the green fridge? Everybody can picture those.
Remember the
fridges.
all-metal stainless steel ones that were like kind of oval?
Oh, so cool.
And the ovens that are stainless steel and gas, like I'm sure those ones are still like kicking around 50, 60 years old.
Ali BYYC, what's up, Calgary? Says, does anybody have a home printer when the ink is more expensive than the printer? Which is a true story.
Don't get on Ryan about printers. We have a
Oh my gosh.
we have a battle going on here.
Well, I'm
for
trying
years.
to. I don't want it to hear us though. I don't want. I don't want it to know.
He is right back here.
Everything that I say about our printer, I say it under my breath, so the printer can't hear. A lot of you were saying I need to get Louis Rossman on the show, and we'll absolutely put in an ask. We appreciate, let me just say this, when you send us a note to talk@ryanjesperson.com and say that, like, I know that people reference right to repair as well. Some of you are. We talked briefly about it with Quick Dick McDick the other day, and that sort of has popped up as a recurring theme on the show. People trying to do what they can in that case to have not just farm equipment, but in particular farm equipment last longer. But when you write into the show, let us know a guest you'd love to hear or your firsthand take, like the miles that you've walked in your boots on the exact thing that we've talked about. It helps us deepen our understanding of what we're talking about. We're always grateful for that. So send us an email anytime to talk@ryanjesperson.com. This is the first episode of the week, and that means courtesy of our friends at Solar by Kubi, we're going to focus on something that's not maybe, although you know what I'm going to say, typically we say maybe outside of the news cycle, maybe not leading the headlines. That's not necessarily the case with this one. This is Tiffany that wrote into the show literally about a half an hour before we started our live stream with today's positive reflection. Tiffany says, like so many people, I was so saddened to hear of the passing of Reverend Jesse Jackson on February 17th. But more than that, Tiffany says, I've been reflecting on what his life actually meant, not just in history books, but in the way that we live and work today. Most people know Reverend Jackson as a giant of the civil rights movement, standing alongside leaders back in the day like Martin Luther King Jr. and carrying that work forward for decades. But what always stood out to me is how Reverend Jackson pushed the fight for equality beyond protests and into places a lot of people overlook, like boardrooms and corporate offices and hiring tables. Through initiatives like Operation Push and the Rainbow Coalition, Reverend Jackson challenged companies to open doors to black professionals, to marginalized communities, insisting that economic inclusion was just as important as political rights. Tiffany says that resonates with me because inequality doesn't just show up in law, it shows up in who gets hired, who gets promoted, and ultimately who gets a seat at the table. And he never stopped. Decade after decade, whether running for president twice or advocating on the ground, he stayed in the fight, adapting, evolving, but always pushing forward. And that kind of endurance is rare. So during Black History Month, Tiffany says, I think the best way to honor Reverend Jackson isn't just to remember him, it's to continue what he started, to ask hard questions about equity in our own workplaces and communities, to challenge systems that still exclude, and to recognize that progress isn't a moment, it's a responsibility. That's amazing, Tiffany, by the way. She says that's the legacy he leaves with us. The question is what we do with it. I want to read that last line again. To recognize that progress isn't a moment, it's a responsibility. That's an incredible email from Real Talker Tiffany to talk@ryanjesperson.com. And what an incredible reminder. What a remarkable life. The Reverend Jesse Jackson, leaving this life on the 17th of February, leaving behind a legacy for all to continue and carry forward. You can submit your positive reflection to talk@ryanjesperson.com. We present it in partnership with our friends at Solar by Kubi, first episode of every week. And of course, you can always get a free solar quote by visiting kubi.ca. That's KUBY.ca. We're back at it, a short week, lots of ground to cover 22 hours from now. In the meantime, thanks, friends, for liking this episode. Thanks for telling your friends about it. And thanks for being good to one another. One love.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson. Executive producer Josh Dunford. Technical producer John Hicks. General manager Katie Cook-Chivers. Account coordinator Lawrence Derlego. Human resources Lena Shepard. Website design Mike Johnston. Voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton.